Hello, everyone. Welcome to REFU Poets. This is our live. We have just started right now. So I'm going to wait for at least one or two people to start streaming before we can start doing anything. But as I do so, I could just introduce what REFU Poet is. REFU Poet is a space that uses art to tell refugee stories of trials and triumph. We figured there having been policies and organizations that specifically handle refugee matters, it would also be great to have an artistic perspective to that. And that's what we do. So Refu Poet started in 2018, where we organized our first event on the World Refugee Day, and we brought together refugee artists and Kenyan artists to perform poetry, music, and even dance to just try and explain what it is to be in the shoe of a refugee. And we also did that last year, 2019, and we're still planning to do that this year, 2020, on the 20th of June. That is this month. Because of COVID-19, of course, so many things have been affected. And so we're going to be doing an online festival where we have pre-recorded performances by refugee artists and Kenyan artists. And on the 20th of June at 6 p.m., we are going to be streaming that live on our platform, that is Facebook at Refu Poets, Instagram at Refu Poets Kenya, and YouTube at Refu Poets Kenya. Now, for this whole week, beginning from Tuesday, we've been carrying out talks with various people, and today we are also carrying out talks with some experts on mental health, and they will also touch on GBV. So I will just, you can see we have 6 people. So that's good. That's good as we wait. So I will now, I would like to just take a round with my panel and let them introduce themselves, tell us who they are, what they do. So I'm going to start with Beatrice. Beatrice, you're welcome. Please just tell us your name, where you work, and what you do, and we can begin from there.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you so much, Artina, for inviting us to this panel. My name is Beatrice Ndanu. I am a social worker by profession and an individual who is very passionate about gender and GBV issues. I currently work for an organization called HIAS with the Gender and GBV department. The organization which I work for, which is HIAS, is an international non-governmental organization, and our main mandate is to protect refugees. We mainly work in 17 different countries that span across the Middle East, Eurasia, Africa, the United States, as well as Latin America. And for Africa, we are based mainly in 2 countries, that is Chad and Kenya. And as a Kenyan program, we mainly work to offer protection to the most vulnerable urban refugees residing within Nairobi through different projects. We also have outreaches to Mombasa as well as Nakuru. Our activities are vast and quite various. We have mental health and psychosocial services which we offer to the refugees. We also offer legal and protection services to the refugees. Our protection services cover the most at-risk refugees, and these are persons with specific needs, children, as well as survivors of gender-based violence. We offer resilience building also to the refugees. Yes, that is who we are in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's an amazing summary of who you are and what you do. Thank you so much, Beatrice. I will now bring in Rhoda. Rhoda, please just introduce yourself to the people. Tell us where you work and what you do.
Thank you very much, Artino. My name is Rhoda Wagaki. I'm a psychological counselor, a personal development trainer, and a certified professional mediator. I am the director of Suruvi Home Care Services, a company that is focused on providing mental wellness services to caregivers. Caregivers is anybody who is taking care of another human being who has a disease, a condition, a disability. And so among the services, we offer online counseling, we offer support groups, we offer debrief services to caregivers in institutions. So among the services that we host are online conversations with caregivers. This happen every Thursday at 3 p.m., 3 to 4 p.m., and we discuss management of various contributors to compassion fatigue and how caregivers can enhance awareness of their own self-care needs. In this platform, caregivers, they connect with each other and with experts, and they offer and receive psychosocial support, and they grow as individuals and in their careers. We talk about trauma, we talk about GBV, we talk about anxiety, we talk about anything that would compromise the quality of care that a caregiver can give to a care needer. That's us.
Thank you. I think that's really cool what you do, because most times we forget the caregiver behind, the person who is actually giving care to the people who need it. So that's really beautiful. So I will introduce Felix. I will bring Felix on board. Please, Felix, tell us who you are and what you do.
Okay, good morning. Now, unless you want me to give you the CV of Makoha and about myself, which is not permanent. Yeah, unless
just 3 or 4 lines.
No, I'm Felix Opondo. I'm a consultant clinical psychologist and a psychologist all around. I hold a master's in education psychology. I hold an MSc in clinical psychology. I hold a postgraduate diploma in counseling psychology, and at the same time, I'm also a legal student at the moment. Now, I work for an organization called Psychologists Consult Kenya, where I'm the principal psychologist. My life in psychology as a psychologist is spanning more than 20 years as a psychologist, more than 20 years. And I've been involved in trainings, I've been involved in teaching, I've been involved in supervision. I do supervision for quite a number of organizations. And mainly one of the areas I've had so much interaction, apart from corporate bodies, one of the areas I've had so much interaction is the humanitarian organization, where I've done supervision and still do supervision for Refugee Consortium of Kenya, HIAS, DRC, Save the Children, or as our source psychologist, Save the Children, Care International Kenyan program, Care International Somalia program, Jesuit Refugee Services, that is GRS, IRC, again as a clinical supervisor, and again as our source psychologist. So basically, my area has been more so in the humanitarian organization, apart from much more of the refugee population, apart from also consultancies in the area, apart from consultancies also in corporate areas. Psychologists Consult Kenya, we are an organization that is really focused on the development of the human capacity, development of the human behavior interventions in areas that are psychology related. We work with associates. And basically we've intervened in so many areas within organizations. Right. Currently, we've worked both inside the country, outside the country. We've worked inside the country, outside the country, and maybe let me just stop there so that I don't go Makoha way.
Yeah, thank you. You've really done a good job. Thank you. So let me bring in Joy to tell us who she is and what she does. Welcome, Joy.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Yes, my name is Joy Kusa. I'm a counseling psychologist. I work with Highest Refugee Trust of Kenya. As Beatrice said, we are based. We have branches all over the world, but we are based in Nairobi, and we deal with urban refugees with outreaches also to Mombasa and Nakuru. I don't want to go through the departments, what we do, because she had already elaborated on them, but maybe I can add in that we have also a special program for young mothers where they are able to access an app game, and that app helps them to navigate through the normal challenges of being single parents and also being young. Basically, yeah, that's what we do at Highest.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all for that introduction. So, just to the audience who have joined us, maybe found us while we're introducing ourselves, this is REFU-Poet, a space that uses art to tell refugee stories of trials and triumph. And today we are on mental health and gender-based violence as it relates to refugees. And we have various representatives from various organizations as we have had. And I would like to kickstart this conversation with the question. Let me direct it to Felix, who is a psychologist. Perhaps maybe just explain to us what is mental health. How do we demystify the title mental health?
Okay, I think, sorry, is it that you trust me? Because at some point I lost you.
Oh,
Hello?
I'm sorry if you lost me. The question that I asked was, what is mental health?
When you speak about mental health, what the World Health Organization, it's about being healthy physically and being healthy mentally. So mental health is about being able to cope with difficulties, being able to cope with challenges. Mental health is about maintaining your functionality at physical level, at social level, at occupational level. Because the moment that you are mentally ill, then it means that you're experiencing incapacitation at your physical level, experiencing incapacitation at your social level, experiencing incapacitation at your occupational level. When you're incapacitated in those particular areas, we say you are not mentally healthy. At the same time, also mental health is about coping, because you see, somebody who's not mentally healthy is somebody who is going through a lot of distress, and the distress that this person is going through is significant, to the point that, as I said earlier on, incapacitation would come in. So when we talk about mental health in general, it's just being able to cope with the challenges that we are experiencing, being able to maintain functionality in all areas. The moment you miss functionality in the key and significant areas, then that's the point at which now you become mentally unhealthy, or that's the point at which you may require help. So that is basically what we want to talk about, so that we understand it away from the definition of World Health Organization on what mental health is. But practically, it's about being able to cope with what you are experiencing. Practically, it's about not being capacitated by what you are experiencing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And I think I would like to follow up that question. Perhaps let me direct it to Beatrice. Felix has mentioned that it's about functionality, being able to function, having capacity to function in all aspects of life. How, and you have said that Highest offers mental services even to refugees. How do you identify a mentally ill person? How do you identify someone who is not functioning well in all aspects of their lives, especially the refugees?
Thank you very much for your question. When it comes to our organization as Highest, first and foremost, we have professionals who have been put in place to be able to know and understand what constitutes non-functionality. For example, our counseling psychologists. We also, as hires, have trained the community outreach workers. These are individuals who are go-betweens between us and the community. We have equipped them to know how to know that an individual is not functioning properly, because they will present with issues that will show that indeed they are having difficulty to cope and to be able to move about their daily business. So we indeed do. We indeed do train community outreach workers to be able to identify these individuals within the community, and then refer them and bring them into our offices, so that then they can be able to get the assistance that they need.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Let me bring in Rhoda. Rhoda works with caregivers, the people who are actually now responsible for providing these health services to people who need it. I would be curious to find out, have you interacted with refugee caregivers who give mental health services to refugees? How has that experience been for you?
Thank you very much, Atieno. I previously worked with an organization that offered access to justice and psychosocial services to refugees. And yes, I was in a GBV program, gender-based violence programming. And in my time there, I found that while immediate help needs to go to the survivor of gender-based violence, that is the refugee survivor, it was very, very helpful, and I still think it is very, very helpful to work with the caregiver, the guardian, the older sister or brother, the parent, the mother, somebody who, when they go home, is able to identify onset of PTSD, is able to identify stress, is able to identify whatever else that this survivor may be going through. And so I found it very, very helpful, one, to give information to the caregiver, and also to find out about their well-being, because if you're a guardian or a parent and your child has been defiled, then you get affected as well. And if you're affected and that is not identified, then it means the quality of care you will be giving the survivor will be compromised. It means that if there is medication and this survivor is not taking the medication, you may not notice. It means that if the survivor is not sleeping well, if they are getting nightmares or whatever else, you may not be able to identify or make wise decisions on their treatment plan, right? So I found that alongside taking care of the survivor, it is important to take care of the designated caregiver for that person.
Thank you. Let me tie that up and ask a question to Joy. Just following up from what Rhoda has said, how important is it to avail psychosocial services to refugees? And another question I would also like to ask you is, we're living in a tough time currently because of the COVID-19 pandemic. How are the refugees coping during this time?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. I think I'll start with the first question. How are refugees able to cope with trauma? Was that the question? Yes.
Yes.
So yeah, the refugees are able to cope with trauma with counseling from the many organizations that are around them. You will realize that every organization that deals with refugees has a component of counseling and mental health and psychosocial support. This is because when it is important for refugees to get this assistance, because when they come from their own countries, they have been forcefully displaced, and they have fled because of things that traumatize their lives. It could be war, it could be rape, it could be whatever happened in their country. So for these
a refugee to be able to come into the host country and integrate into the country, they need to be mentally fit so that they can be able to rebuild their lives. It is important for them to get assistance, psychosocial assistance, so that they can get that, they can be in that mind frame that allows them to rebuild their life. You know, when someone has trauma, it really incapacitates their functioning. When we were talking about we were talking about mental health, we were talking about the ability to function. Many times when people are traumatized, they are always at a hyper aroused state of life, and therefore they are not able to settle down and be able to face the task that is ahead of them, you know, rebuilding your life, getting a second chance in life. It could really affect them. So it is important for refugees to get psychological assistance so that they can be able to settle in and integrate in the new country that they have come and rebuild their lives, as I had said. Currently, how are refugees coping with COVID? COVID, of course, is a very challenging period for everybody, not just for refugees, even for Kenyans. And, you know, it becomes a very big problem for refugees because they have to struggle for the little resources that are there with Kenya, with the members of the host country, and those opportunities are very limited, as we said. And there's sometimes there's a lot of discrimination whereby when the refugees go to look for work, sometimes they are not paid like other Kenyans are paid. So it becomes very difficult. However, many refugees have a very strong and formidable support system from fellow refugees. They help each other out in terms of living a social life, you know. So in the sense that if my neighbor is a refugee and I am a refugee and they don't have food, I will chip in towards helping my fellow refugee to get food so that they're able to cope. Yeah, basically, that is it. And also for the COVID-19 period, there have been many CBOs that have been offering support to their fellow refugees in terms of provision of food and even getting basic needs. And some of these organizations are founded by refugees themselves, so they're able to support each other. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Joy. I think it's important, that you mentioned that point on how refugees can help each other, and later I will be asking that question on how can we build capacity of refugees to be able to help each other, especially during tough times and with the trauma that they go through. So right before I welcome Desmond to ask any question that he would like to ask to any of you, I would just like to remind our audience that today we are having a conversation on mental health and gender-based violence as relates to refugees. And please note that you're welcome to ask any questions that you would like to any of the panelists that we have. Please do comment on our Facebook, on our YouTube, so that we can see your comments and read your questions or comments out to our panelists. Desmond, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. I had a question that I wanted to ask Grace. Sorry, to ask Joy. Sorry. Most of the time we get in situations whereby me as a Kenyan, we always ask how, with the little resources that I have, how can I help the next person who's suffering? How can I help a refugee with the little resources I have? So my question is, how then do we build the capacities of these people and of refugees to help each other, especially as Atieno had said, during the COVID times, because right now it's tough on everyone, and I feel like, how are we then able to develop capacities of different individuals so that in the long run we are able to be at a level where, despite the challenge that comes, we are able to handle the situation?
Yes, thank you so much for that question. How can we build the capacity of refugees during this COVID-19 pandemic period? It would be interesting to know that even before we build capacity, that the refugees are very resilient and they know how to survive and they know how to support each other and they know how to, live a meaningful life with the support that they get. One thing I like about the refugees is that they have very strong support structures, as I said. So how do we build their capacity? The first thing would be to have, if the refugee organizations or urban refugee organizations would be able to have community support orientation, that would be very good, so that we build their capacity as refugees to be able to support each other. As I was saying, they're very resilient, first of all, and that's why many of them have started CBOs where they support each other. We can also build capacity by training community leaders and faith-based leaders so that they're able to offer essential services to the refugees through their own systems that they have. We can also be able to build capacity to refugees by training them on peer-to-peer counseling. So because they are able to identify with what each other refugee is going through. So if we empower them to get basic counseling needs, skills, they'll be able to help one another. I can also add in that if we have if we ourselves can do psychoeducation to fellow host people, it would be easier for them to accept the refugees and also to support them as they support themselves. Basically, that's what I can say. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would like to tie that question and maybe even ask it to Felix. You said you also work on capacity development. Perhaps may you break down how that looks like? How does capacity development to enable people to offer psychosocial services look like?
The things that I'm aware that organizations are doing is to build the capacity of the refugees themselves. The incentive workers or any other term that is used to refer to them, community workers, incentive workers, and basically all the organizations that I consult with at the moment. One of the things that they're doing, hires included, is investing a lot of resources in building the capacity. The building capacity of the incentive workers or the community workers. I think it's very critical because the refugees understand their culture. The refugees understand what they got. The refugees are in touch with each other. The refugees see each other each and every day. The refugees know what they are going through. And therefore, if you're able to move away, and that should be the way forward, we need to move away and remove the support from us and build support within the refugees. Because if you're going to take that approach, one, it's going to be cost effective. Cost effective in the tune that they are readily available. Cost effective in the tune that they have all the time. Cost effective in the tune that they know each other and they know their cultural background, what they are going through. And the cost effective in the manner that they actually interact each and every day. So capacity building should actually move. And that's why my assertion, and let me just say it here, organization should remove psychology from organization and give psychology to the community, give psychology to the refugees. And then as organization, we remain back in terms of providing guidance, in terms of providing leadership, in terms of doing supervision, both clinical and administrative supervision, and basically in organizations whereby they have built the capacity of the refugees, you find that it's really effective. I would give an example apart from give an example like GRS. GRS in Kakuma, they're the ones who are they're actually the organization that is implementing the counseling in Kakuma. And one of the things that they have done in the implementation of counseling is that they have built the capacity of the incentive workers. And the incentive workers are the ones that are doing counseling themselves, of course, with supervision from the national staff or that kind of staff. So I think organizations are doing very well. I want to appreciate the work of the humanitarian organization. They are building the capacity of the incentive workers. But of course, also as they're doing this, are keeping an eye on them, guiding them, supervising them, knowing what they are doing, managing the referrals becomes actually very important and very critical. And for organizations like HIAS and GRS who have actually implemented this in detail, and these people are empowered, basically in terms of capacity building for the very incentive workers, this is really a step forward. That's what I'm saying in terms of capacity building.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I would like to maybe bring in some comments from people who are watching, and the first question is directed to Rhoda. So Biubo Merilis says the only saddest part is that most caregivers do not give much care to survivors. Really, looking at trends from way back, people who are supposed to be caregivers, for example, parents, guardians, and siblings, become the ones who further victimize the victims. What is your opinion about that?
Thank you for the question. It is true that statistically, perpetrators of violence, gender-based violence, are usually people who are relatives in close proximity to the survivors. And it's very unfortunate, and it's not just for the refugee community, it's just across the globe. And it's very unfortunate that that is happening. However, I am one of those that really believe in the goodness of humanity. And I have seen over and over that it doesn't matter what community it is, there is always at least one person. There will be one person who will say, I will take care of this survivor. There is one person who's fighting for their rights. There is one person who blows the whistle. There is always a person who takes the matter to the police or to an organization, a human rights organization, and fights for that person. Now, for me, for us at Suruvi, that becomes the designated caregiver, the person who is looking out for the well-being of the survivor. It may not be the biological parent or the guardian or the person designated by the government to watch over the survivor. It could be a neighbor. It could be a person in the community. It could be a a far relative, a distant relative, but there is that one person. And for us, that becomes the designated caregiver, the person to work with, the person to give the psychology to, like Felix has spoken, to empower that person to be able to give support to the survivor. There is always a person. It's unfortunate it's not always the parent or the sibling or the close relative, but there's always a person. And that is why I think it is also very important to empower communities, entire communities, to be able to step into situations where the person who naturally should be there isn't. Empower the community to note stigma and discrimination and abuse or violations, and they are able to step in and help in their own little way. But then if empowered, it can become a big way and it can make a difference for that person, the survivor.
Yeah. Before we go on, thank you so much for that, Rhoda. I think for every good cause, there's always just, something bad that tries to insert itself in it and try to nullify the whole objective. But yeah, it's really good what you're saying. So I would like to recognize the presence of Casey. Casey is not in this panel right now, but she is in the backstage. So perhaps I will switch Desmond with Casey for just a little bit, and then bring Desmond back, so that we can hear what Casey has to say. But as we do that, I would like to ask another question. First of all, Rhoda has mentioned about stigma. There's a lot of stigma, and I would like to direct this one to Beatrice. How do refugees cope with the stigma of, first of all, being refugees, and even most of the time being mentally incapable of carrying out their daily activities? How do they cope, especially when they're running away from their homes because of war, and then maybe rape cases or discrimination and those kind of things? How do they cope with the stigma once they get to host countries?
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you very much for your question, Atieno. Refugees, as my colleague has alluded to, are actually quite resilient individuals. And because they have fled their country due to issues resulting from either war or natural disasters, they come in with such diverse and experiences that cause them quite a lot of trauma. The way refugees are able to cope with the stigma of being forcibly displaced is that once they arrive in the country of asylum, they seek out areas and places and cities where their own live. It's something that is considered as kin country syndrome, where if a new individual arrives into a city, they look for areas where their own live. In these communities where the refugees arrive at, they are able to get the social support that they need, because it gives them a sense of familiarity, a sense of home, quote unquote, home away from home, because in these areas where they live together, they are sharing cultural practices. They are sharing a language. It makes them feel welcome and at ease, and not necessarily lost in a new place. Another way that refugees are also able to cope with the stigma of being forcibly displaced is that they also turn to religion and faith to help them overcome the stigma, which is really very interesting, because with them being embedded in religion and faith, these are places where they can get support. Churches can come together and assist them to meet their daily needs, because trauma can also be caused by one's living conditions. If you compare your life in Kenya as a refugee and your life at home, probably, which was much better, it can cause you stress and trauma. So they seek to cope through turning to religion as well as faith, which gives them hope for a better tomorrow. Another way which our refugees are also able to cope is through family and social support systems. Here we find that once a refugee arrives in the country of asylum, oftentimes they are connected to existing family members residing in the country of asylum, or they are connected to members of their clan who are residing in the country of asylum. Again, it gives them a sense of familiarity that enables them to settle down and begin to rebuild their lives, knowing that there are those who have gone before them and have been able to make it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Beatrice. So let me bring in some of the comments from the audience right here. So let me direct this to Joy. Bilbo Mary Liz asks, address the issue of funding, knowing how access to mental health care services is not a cheap affair, really, and considering how hard it is for refugees to access stable sources of income. Oh, she had directed this question to Felix, so let me let Felix answer this, and then I'll ask Joy the next question.
Okay. One aspect about I can hear about the funding of the mental health is not cheap in the country, and the mental health consultation is one of the most expensive consultations. I say that a psychologist, in terms of consultation, most of them would range at 5,000, 6,000, while you know that even medical specialist consultation range at 3,000, 4,000 or thereabout. So accessing these services for the refugees is a challenge because one, these refugees are incentive workers. And when they're incentive workers, it means that they can only be paid minimally in the organizations they are working. They have so much, quite a lot in terms of mental health needs, more than we do. We are having people who are going through, in fact, issues of depression, issues of post-traumatic stress disorder, issues of anxiety actually are actually prevalent than any other population. But basically, also above this, there are also issues of trauma. They cannot be able to move, and bear in mind, they really require psychological and mental health services. Even organizations that are providing medical care may not be addressing so much issues in terms of health. And therefore, access to this, what we can simply do is that we need organizations that are offering medical help, like the IRC. They need to be strengthened in terms of the funding so that they can be able to also take issues of mental health as a major issue among the refugee population. Again, funding for various organizations that are also offering psychosocial help should be enhanced so that this is grounded among the refugee population. I'd said earlier on that organizations are trying to give psychology back to the community, training the incentive workers and etc. But basically, these people may not be able to actually intervene at the level of the national staff who are qualified, who are licensed, and who are registered. And within the organization, there are so few. That is because of the funding issue. And that's why you find that they give capacity the refugees to actually also implement counseling session among the refugee population. So access is really an issue here, and that is one area that we really need to address and address it very, very seriously in terms of the legal and psychological aspect. Address it very, very seriously. Unless we're going to do that, we are going to continue having cases of suicide among the refugee population. What has been happening? Cases of death that are psychologically related. So I think we really need to have a paradigm shift in terms of the mental health of the refugee population. As they come, they go through so many atrocities. When you see them arriving in the refugee camps, this person has gone through so much in transit and also from the original point where they were coming from. And once they reach the refugee camp, there are also challenges that are also there. And coupled with the challenges that are there at the refugee camps, and with minimal number of staff in psychological help, dealing with a group of people that we may not be able to know what they are going through, but they are going through so much. Therefore, there needs to be a paradigm shift completely the mental health of the refugee population.
Thank you so much, Felix. Let me ask this question to Beatrice. Someone is asking, good morning. A member of the panel mentioned the personnel who identify those who are mentally ill. That is the psychologists and the community workers. What are the signs or characteristics that one would use to identify those who are mentally unhealthy?
We had mentioned earlier that refugees, live amongst themselves, and community outreach workers, who are individuals who are go-betweens between the communities and the agencies that provide assistance, have been trained on how to identify the the signs that an individual requires mental health and psychosocial services. One of the ways that these one of the signs that these community workers have been trained to look out for are mainly done through something that is called peer-to-peer discussions. These are individuals who go around the community speaking to their peers, finding out the issues that they are facing, whether mentally or social issues that they are facing. And some of the signs to look out for include issues of nightmares, of insomnia in the case of children and even adults. Issues of their inability to go out to look for work due to issues of anxiety and panic attacks. Individuals who are overly who are angry because of what has happened to them in the country of origin, and hence are unable to cope and be able to rebuild their lives and move about as normal. We had my colleague had alluded to the fact that trauma does indeed incapacitate individuals, and this is very true. For an adult who's facing insomnia and nightmares, for example, the lack of sleep during the night can make them unproductive during the day. So if we are able to understand that they are unable to work during the day because their energy levels are low because they are not well rested, then that can guide us on the best intervention to handle that in order for them to live their lives as normal.
Thank you. So I was hoping we were going to do this earlier, but the discussion on mental health kind of took it. But we have mentioned a little bit of aspects on gender-based violence. So let me bring in Joy. Perhaps just explain to us and the audience at large what gender-based violence entails, especially relating to refugees. What are the mechanisms that are used to identify gender-based violence amongst refugees? And perhaps you can also tell us what HIAS is doing in relation to gender-based violence cases amongst refugees.
Okay, thank you so much for that question. Now, gender-based violence is any kind of violence directed to somebody because of their gender, in terms of because they are women, or because of their sexual orientation, or because of those kind of vulnerabilities. How we as an organization help? Okay, there are various forms of, maybe before I go on, there are various forms of gender-based violence. It could be economic. You're being oppressed because you are not able to give in maybe a sexual favor, or because you're a woman. They could be rape, they could be domestic violence. There's intimate partner violence. There's domestic violence. There's forced marriage. There's FGM, female genital mutilation, and there are many of them. But I've mentioned the core types. And so how does our organization come in to help people suffering from GBV, survivors of GBV? We offer, the first response is through psychological first aid, where we advise them, we encourage our clients to go and seek medical assistance. And once they seek medical assistance, we will encourage them also to report to the police station. And at the police station, there is a gender desk for survivors of torture, where these officers have been trained on how to handle and deal with such incidences. And so when they go to that desk, they'll be given a P3 form. A P3 form will be filled in for them, and then they'll also get an OB. And after that, when they come to us, of course, we'll do counseling. We will be able to support them so that they're able to overcome the trauma. They're able to heal. They're able to come to terms with what has happened to them. And we also encourage them to pursue legal assistance. That is, if they're interested. And by that, we are able to refer them to other referral agencies that we have within the urban area, like Kituo cha Sheria and RCK, where they are able to get legal assistance. But as an organization, we also are very concerned about their welfare in terms of, are they safe where they're living? And that's where we introduce the aspect of GBV housing, GBV safe housing, where we find a member of the society, of the community, who can be able to host them while they come to terms with what has happened to them. And we support them with, of course, basic needs, so that as the refugee is healing, he or she is not a burden to the family that is hosting them. We, as I said, we also offer, we have a department that deals specifically with gender based violence, and they offer group discussions, so as to support the survivors of torture, and also for advocacy against gender-based violence in the community. Yeah, basically that is what we do.
Thank you so much, Joy. Let me bring in Rhoda. I know you work with caregivers, but perhaps could you shed some light on what are some of the consequences of gender-based violence against those who are vulnerable, for example, refugees?
Thank you for the question. Gender-based violence can, how will I put it? Gender-based violence can actually make you doubt your worth. It can hit a severe blow at your self-esteem, at who you are and what you're able to do. If it is violence that has been meted out to you over time, it may actually incapacitate you, get you to the point where you cannot make decisions over yourself, where get you to a point where you think you deserve this. And this is aside from, depression, anxiety, panic attacks, substance abuse, insomnia. It can actually make it such that you do not continue your life in your full capacity of who you are, the person you were meant to be, your dreams, your hopes, your aspirations, living fully. Affect your mental health, as Felix had said earlier. When we say mental health, we talk about the ability to maintain functionality in key areas of your life. And gender-based violence can actually incapacitate you at that level, where you second guess yourself, you cannot make decisions, you're dependent on somebody else, because of stigma, discrimination, you never step out again, you question your very being. And even worse, when the community or the family says you deserved it, or you went for it, or you asked for it, that can actually just destroy a person. Worst case scenario, destroy a person, right? But the all of that, big and bad as it is, I want to reiterate that it doesn't have to be that way. That's why there are experts. That's why there are psychologists. That's why there are psychiatrists. That's why there are kind family members or community members. And just like my colleague here also said, that's why there's the legal system. And one of the things that helps to empower survivors of gender-based violence is to pursue the legal system. Once you see justice being served, once you see people who believe your story, people who are there for your good, it does help in the recovery process. It does reinforce your value as a human being. Again, taking the legal route is not easy on the survivor, because burden of proof is on them a lot of the times, but it is a journey that can be worthwhile. And if you are able to make the journey with support, psychosocial support, then the outcome may be better than living in silence and living in secrecy and keeping your wounds to yourself. It big and bad as the results can be, they can be helped. There is hope. There is hope for survivors.
There is hope. Thank you. So I'm just looking at my time and I'm noticing that time has really, really flown. And we have about like 6 minutes. So I would just like us maybe to take a round and just give our parting shots. But before we do, I would like to thank all of you who are participating. There are some questions that have been asked. Mary Liz has asked several questions that unfortunately we're not able to get to because time is really, really flying. But perhaps I can carry these questions to the discussion on Monday. And I would also like to remind our audience that on the 20th of June, we're going to be celebrating refugees on the World Refugee Day using poetry, music, and dance. And it's going to be an online festival. So be sure to follow our pages on Facebook at REFU-Poet, Instagram at REFU-Poet Kenya, YouTube at REFU-Poet Kenya. So starting with Beatrice, please, you can just tell us maybe one thing you've picked up from the conversation or one thing you would like to leave with the audience, and perhaps just your parting shots as we conclude this session.
Thank you very much, Atieno. As I part, I'd like to just inform our audience that indeed there is a lot more as refugee agencies that we should be doing for the refugees, specifically in the area of building their resilience and being accountable to them, such that we are able now to give them the power to be able to handle mental health and psychosocial issues, as well as caregiving to survivors of GBV. We should aim as not just the host community, but as refugee agencies to ensure that the refugees are living in dignity and are resilient and are able to find solutions, because they are more than able. What I've carried from this conversation is that there is need for us to continue to build their capacity and ensure that in the long run, refugees are living in safety and dignity without discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you. Felix, maybe your parting shots? Felix, I think your mic is mute.
Oh, sorry, Atieno. Yeah, I want to say that I want to go back to what I'd said, that there is need to be paradigm shift in terms of supporting the refugee population in the area of mental health. One, as I said earlier on, there is need for us to be able to start really intensely giving society, giving psychology to the community. Capacity build them, let us build them. Apart from that, we'll be able to help each other. Two, the paradigm shift is that there is need for the donor funding to do much more in terms of also the psychological health of the refugees. This goes when the funding is set, is actually targeted on that area. We'll have more counselors, more psychologists, more social workers, and other professionals coming in. Three, we need to start moving away from the treatment, from the intervention to more to preventing mental health issues. And one very important aspect of that is that there are two things that organizations need to focus on. One, there is need for us to build the psychological immune system of the refugees, because they get affected because their psychological immune system has been shattered. And psychological immunity is a serious protective factor in terms of resilience building among the refugees. If they are they have gone through so much on evidence that stress has led to the areas of immunosuppression, both from the physiological perspective and also from the psychological perspective. When you're going to build the psychological, because this is the new concept that we're talking about, is called psychological immune system piece, we need to be able to build their psychological antibodies. And the building of the psychological antibodies will help them in two things. One, they'll be able to cope better. Two, they'll be able to develop resilience. And developing of the resilience implies that I have been affected, but I can be able to bounce back. Developing the resilience also implies that I can go through a traumatic situation, a stressful situation that they go through every day, but they can still be able to maintain their functionality. Now, there is need for us to focus more on post-traumatic growth, as opposed to what we keep on looking at in terms of psychological first aid, psychological intervention. We have done this over and over. And the paradigm shift to psychological post-traumatic growth becomes very critical, whereby people can go through trauma. They are wounded by the traumatic events that they have gone through. But at the end of the day, when they come out, the event that they have gone through makes them grow. And they even become stronger than even before they went through the traumatic event. These are some of the policies that we need to come in. Let us help them to have control. Let us help them to be able to have problem-solving skills. Let us be able to help them to be able to have emotional balance. Let us be able to help them to have positive thinking, the essence of positive psychology. And the moment that we are able to develop people's psychological immune system, I'm telling you that is going to be a serious preventive and a protective factor among the refugee population when it comes to the issues of the mental health. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very comprehensive there. We have Rhoda. We can go to Rhoda and then we can conclude with Joy. Perhaps in just a few seconds, your parting shots before we can conclude this session.
All right, thank you, Atieno. I want to quote Rosalind Carter, a former First Lady of the United States of America. She said that there are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need a caregiver. Every one of us at one point or another fall into these categories. And I want to say that caregiving, the journey of being a caregiver, sometimes it is planned for, sometimes it is not. Nonetheless, it can be very overwhelming and a very isolating experience. And I want to say, following from what, again, my colleague Felix said, that mental health services can be expensive. We have a free online forum every Thursday at 3 o'clock so that we are able to discuss things that would help you not get lost in the experience of giving care, not get disintegrated, disenfranchised, isolated, overwhelmed, not to help people not end up being patients necessarily after they have been so good and kind as to give care to another person. Get us on Facebook, get us on IG. For 99 shillings, you get a whole GB and you're able to attend the session. And it is affordable, more affordable than 5,000. So get in there, reach out. As a caregiver, it's on you to reach out. Reach out for assistance, reach out for growth, reach out for connection with other caregivers. Whether you're a refugee, whether you are just a regular citizen, reach out. And all the best.
Thank you so much, Rhoda. I think you can post a comment on the social media avenues where people can find you. You can just post them here on the comment section so that even people who will come afterwards can be able to go there and find these services. Thank you, Rhoda. Let's conclude with Joy. What are your parting shots?
Please. Okay, thank you. So, I believe maybe if had we had time, we'd discuss more about GBV. So my parting shot is, please let us continue supporting survivors of gender-based violence. It will never be enough for us for the awareness we have done. We still need to continue carrying on with our awareness, because the fight against gender-based violence is real, and it's happening more so right now that people are at home and nobody is busy, there's nothing much that people are doing. So let us continue with the fight. Let us continue with our awareness. Let us support these survivors so that they can live a better life in their country of asylum.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Joy. Thank you, all of you. Thank you, Beatrice. Thank you, Rhoda. Thank you, Joy, Felix, and even Desmond, who had to leave earlier before. Thank you to all of you who've tuned in and watched since we started this stream to the end of this. We can only say thank you. I hope this discussion has been helpful to you. If so, please leave a comment and say what you have picked up from this conversation. This live stream will also be available after this on Facebook and on YouTube. Please make sure to share this with everyone that you know, your friends, your relatives, and around you. Just to mention one last thing, that on Instagram at REFU-Poet Kenya, we always have live sessions at 5 p.m. with refugees. We've been having live sessions with refugee artists and just getting to know them and listening to a bit of poetry from them. So please join us on that platform today at 5 p.m. So let me just bring, oh no, Felix won't be able to come back, but that's fine. I'd like to end this stream right here, and thank you so much. Let's meet again on Monday. We have a whole week of discussions on various topics, on topics of education, on policies, on art, as we usher in the World Refugee Day on the 20th of June. I would like to say thank you once more and goodbye. Thank you, Felix. We have just finished. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can just do it.